the board members here are what, when you're 3 years? Or 2?
Yeah.
3
Three.
years. Why a 5-year
And it's
contract?
staggered.
That seems unprecedented to me. I don't know, maybe if you can explain why it would be a 5 versus a 2 or a 3.
Because our district needs a 5-year contract.
Our district
With a
needs
solid
a
superintendent.
solid superintendent.
That's my answer. You
Okay.
can ask each of the
And-
board members, but
That was
And
my-
everything you've done, I mean, with 6 weeks or from July 1st tells you that this is the right person.
You know, I've been
Well-
on the board for many years, and I can say I've sat now through, this is my 4th superintendent since I've been on the board. And I will tell you, without a doubt, there is no doubt in my mind that she is gonna take this school to the top. And she is a good business person, and she is a good with financials, and she is a good mentor, and she drives everything she does with the student first.
and I wanna, about the contract,
I've seen,
this
I've seen-
evening in
it seems-
non-public, just a minute,
I'm
this
sorry.
evening in non-public is when we're going over the actual contract as a board. All we've done is said we're offering this up. Now we have to actually dig into the contract. Of course, there will be performance clauses, of course, there will be requirements, of course, there will be, clauses for all
Standards,
kinds of things
expectations.
to make
It
sure
worries
that
me-
we're protecting the district, certainly. And your suggestions are great ones in addition to what we've already talked about and what we're planning to talk about in non-public. So, and like the 3-year, 2-year, that's a great idea, it could be some, or 2-year, 3-year. Okay, sorry,
It just-
2,
it raises
3.
a red flag, it raises a red flag to me that, it's a 5-year contract and it was seen to be done without any of our inputs. It was entirely the board that made this
Well,
decision,
can I-
it seems to
I
me.
mean,
Can I speak
And
to that?
it also, I hear grumblings about maybe teachers even leaving because of this, and I just don't want that to happen. I have 2 kids in the school system, and I want the best for them.
And
You know,
I guess I have to,
If there's something, that you can't tell us of why this person is good,
Well-
I just don't see it from where I'm sitting.
Okay, at first, just one thing though. I have to clarify because I'm hearing it's not about Dr. Cox, but then I'm hearing that if we hire Dr. Cox, people are gonna be leaving. So,
Well, I don't know. I don't
okay,
know Dr. Cox. All I hear, but if the staff is not on board, which seems to me from the survey and everything that's gone on here that they're not.
oh, the staff is not on board?
I
Is
don't
what
know.
you're getting
The board
out of
doesn't know
something you're hearing? Sean?
Sean Crawl, 92 Beatty Hill Road. I know that one of my biggest concerns on Dr. Cox specifically is that when I did my search on her, the very first thing that popped up was that a principal either got fired, quit, or was forced to resign under her. And that really puts the fear in for me. I love the way that Mr. Safina is running our school. I was there, or Max was at the school at the time when there was 2 principals, that the school was separated. I attended the board meetings when the board had first considered to go to a 1 principal, vice principal format. I was extremely concerned and very nervous that that was taking place. I put my trust in the board that it was making the right decision and going that way, and I have to say I couldn't be happier in the results that's undertaken. The school seems more unified under him.
Thank you for saying that, it means a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, and absolutely, I mean, it seems more unified. The RTI program that he had started in the middle school and then brought down with a test run, I believe, in the 4th grade first, and now it's throughout the entire school. My kids have gotten immense curriculum out of that. My son is extremely proficient in math, and he lacks a little bit in reading and spelling, and that increased dramatically with the RTI program. My daughter is the opposite. She's a very strong reader and lacks math confidence. And having the RTI, I have seen her confidence soar this year. It's been really well. Having said that, when I did the research, and that was the first thing that popped up, it makes me question that.
Sean, we've all done the same research, just so you know, and we have vetted that question as well as other questions that came up on the survey before we even talked about offering a contract. We talked about the evaluation with Dr. Cox, and we vetted those questions, and we were extremely satisfied with the answers we got. Unfortunately, we can't share
Right,
them.
and I understand.
But we were very satisfied with the answers we got, and it is not our intent to run out the good staff that we have. I mean, we know we have really good staff, and we are hoping that Dr. Cox is going to build them up, mentor them to be better, because we feel that she has that strength and skill.
And I understand that, but, and being a parent that is that it has the luxury of being in the school a lot and volunteering, the atmosphere that I see when I go in, it makes me nervous. Like, I just don't feel like, I don't feel like the atmosphere with the administration is the same as it was under Ms. Langer. I don't see the easy-going communication between the two. When I'm sitting at the board meeting, I don't know, there's a tension there. I don't know what it is, I'm
Well-
sure that there's a lot of things that, obviously can't be said for personnel reasons, and I completely understand that. But as a parent looking in, that is my concern specifically with Dr. Cox. Having said that, again, I'm going on what the board said on June, and that they would have a full search. And when she said in a board meeting that she would not put her name in, as a parent, that sends up red flags to me. If you believe in this town, if you feel that you are the best for our town and our school, then why would you not put your name in for a superintendent? If you are the best candidate, whether somebody else comes in or not, then your name is going to be chosen, whether it's interim or not interim. That shouldn't have an impact on that.
We asked her that question, by the way.
Okay, and so when she said that as a parent,
Right.
it made me question her wanting to be here, and again,
Actually, she spoke to that question
Yes.
at that meeting, at the meeting at the library.
right, and I was there when she gave that reason, but, myself personally, I don't believe that reasoning is good enough not to put your name in. I think if you're a good enough candidate and somebody thinks that they're better, that they are going to put their name in against you, regardless of if you're the interim or not.
I just like to say a few things. Since I started getting involved in politics in this town, I'm kind of used to stirring up hornets' nests.
I can hear you, so I'll listen as I go.
Okay,
back to get
I'm
some
kind of
water.
used to stirring up hornets' nests. And, since I started the budget committee and moved to the school board. And one of the first things we did as a school board is we reorganized the school, and there was a similar reaction to that. And I would like to say, man, do people think that the school is better or worse over the last 3 years? Has it improved or not improved?
Improved.
And it's improved a lot. And a lot. In fact, the latest test scores, we got NEWA test scores, were just remarkable. They're really going by leaps and bounds. In fact, my understanding is that we were told at this Red Ribbon Week that they had recently was the best weeks they've had in school in 10 years. So some good things are definitely occurring. So we reorganized the school, and there was a huge public reaction against it. And we've also, sort of kept the lid on some of the spending in the school. There's been reaction against that. I had to stand at the polling booth this spring when I ran again for office and hear people talk about the town. And that the tax rate went up 70 cents from last year. And it's going up again next year. And and despite the fact there are some good things happening in the town as far as, there are a lot more building, there's some building going in, I'm also on the planning board, so I have an idea what's going on as far as the town's building and housing and stuff like that. And there is a lot of people doing additions and things to their homes. Unfortunately, there are some projects that have been abandoned. We also had a guy who walked away from the project because he said, I can't find people to buy homes in this town. So it is an issue that we have to face. And I understand that there's a group of people here who certainly have, very vocal and very well organized and speak very well for themselves. But I've also heard from 400 other people who have other ideas and think in other ways. And the other thing too is as far as hiring the superintendent, I think there's a couple things. Unfortunately, some things that I really can't share with you. As far as the last public search, with the search committee being successful, I would say it wasn't successful because we had a superintendent who left after a year, a broker contract. So I would say it wasn't successful, because we didn't get someone who could commit themselves to the school. As far as a 5-year contract, pardon?
That's flawed logic, but.
Is that flawed
Well,
logic? No.
yes.
We
it's-
can,
No,
you
I
can,
can't-
I'll call on
you
you
can say
next,
what
but
you
let's
want.
not argue.
All right, but
Finish your thought.
we are aware of what happened and why she left. Unfortunately, we can't discuss it. As far as the, Betsy, I think one of the strengths of her is the fact is that she's not a micromanager. And that's one thing I like about her. She is a mentor. And she is someone who is going to set expectations to do their job, and she's gonna expect them to do it. And she doesn't do it by going in there and watching over their shoulder all the time. She does it through performance review, she does it through a whole other ways of things of doing things. She was very astute when she came to school. Her observations after the first couple of weeks of her being here, she already had a good insight of what was going on in school, what was going on in school academically, and what was going on in school as far as morale and a bunch of other issues. I was really amazed at how quickly she picked up on the school atmosphere and the school academics and the school
There
curriculum.
were students there, Delhi, right?
Pardon?
There were no students there yet. She started July 1st.
Well, just
You said after 2 weeks.
from looking at the test results of the previous year and what was going, the NEWAs and kneecaps and stuff like that, she already had a pretty good idea.
It was purely statistics then.
Looking at academically what was going on in school, and in the fall, she came in with some ideas, and she had already, within a month, in a couple of weeks, she had a good idea of what the atmosphere was in the school. As far as morale in the school, I can tell you, from when I came on, the morale in the school has actually improved. And you may not believe that, but it has.
What,
And as far as the offering her a 5-year contract, I wanted to offer her a 5-year contract because we need someone here for 5 years. A 5-year contract with performance evaluations built into it, I think was a good contract. I think we need a long-term commitment from a superintendent. We also were faced with the possibility that we had someone that we thought was good for the job, who could do the job. There's absolutely no guarantee if we did a search committee if we would find someone as good as she. In fact, most school districts are already hiring the superintendents for next year. And most of them will be hired probably by the end of November. So, that is another issue that we looked at. So we decided, and I thought, based on her performance, based on her insight, based on her quick evaluation and assessment of the situation, based on a lot of other things that I really can't discuss, that she showed very good insight. She's been extremely helpful in a number of areas, not just in which I thought was very good, but she's also. I just like her attitude. She does not. I like the attitude that you can talk with her, and I don't think she's ever taken anything personally in all the times that I say anything to her, which I think which was really good. So for these and other reasons, but and I really believe that with her there, we have someone we know. And we have someone that the board knows, that I know, and that someone who's going to continue to bring the school towards the excellence that we all as a school board want to see.
Let me get to Doreen, because I skipped her,
Okay.
and then I have a lot of hands, so we'll get to you. I mean, it might be a late night, but we'll get to everybody.
Okay, so basically, just to take a few steps back, I think we talked about the ambiguity of the wording on the evaluation and how there obviously was some sort of miscommunication. In conjunction with that, you received 80 evaluations. 34% of them asked for a full search. Now, to me, that seems significant, and I don't know how that's not. I mean,
It's a request from 34%
Right.
of the people who filled it out, Doreen. It's a request.
right, and that's a considerable amount.
The board has to weigh that along with everything else that we took in those
And
evaluations
that brings me
and
to
make
my
a
next
decision for
point.
the district.
I agree with you, Ida, on that.
Okay.
And that brings me to my next point is, you talk about all these hiring and these decisions that you guys had to make behind the scenes, but can't tell us. it was my understanding on the right to know law that we, in RSA 91A, I believe it is, and this is where I need help because maybe I'm misunderstanding it, that any email communication that you guys have had about hiring and decisions, how you checked references, what they were, all that should be made available to us, correct?
We don't have email conversations.
Not regarding.
I don't know what you're talking, I don't know. If it's a part of the personnel report, you don't get that. It's
Okay.
part of the personnel record, but if it's the job search,
Yeah, like what, basically
the
what,
interview process,
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
for example, just as a community member, it was my understanding that there's certain things that we are privy to.
yes.
That,
Yes.
and so I'm just curious specifically, what were those items about Dr. Cox that made you say, we're gonna forego our intended plans? Because you, Ida, said specifically on June 18th, you were not going to rush into this process.
Right.
And then, 20 minutes ago, it was, we need to hurry up and get this done. So
Right.
I understand it, but at the same time too, as much as you said you need to hurry up and get this done because maybe it was an epiphany and it came to you real quick, we as a board, we are still operating under the June 18th expectation. We put out a petition in 2 days and got over 150 signatures. And with all due respect, you say morale isn't low? Several teachers signed their names.
Well, I can
I mean, that's
speak to.
concerning.
I know, I don't.
Let me
understand it.
answer, but Doreen
Yeah.
had a question that I want to answer. When I said we didn't want to rush into it, that's when Mrs. Lange left and we had to hire an interim and I didn't want to hire a permanent position because we didn't have time to. We had
Right.
2 weeks. So that's what I was talking about then. This is now. This is her having been in the position and me recognizing we have a strong superintendent here.
Correct. And also just off observations from watching things, I addressed that we had teachers get involved because they are concerned about their school, they're concerned about their coworkers. I get we're gonna take a breather this year and hopefully not cut any of them, but that always lays over your head. And then in addition to that, you have, you watch these videos of the board meetings. You guys love her and you work great with her and that's wonderful. But did you ever think about everybody else who's working integrally with her? Are they having the same experience? Because when you're watching it, it really isn't appearing so. And that brings you to the point of worrying about our staff at the school who are with our children. My children, when they're concerned or they're nervous or they're upset, they've come a long way in this school with Ida's help and several board members' help. And I'll tell you right now, my children will go to Mr. Safina if they can't find their teacher or something's going on. And my fear as a parent is we finally have someone in that spot that the community more than, if you had 80 people, I bet you'd probably only have 2% right do something. You have a significant amount of people who are concerned about our leadership and what's going to happen because you don't see that locking happening. And that scares us. You don't see it with our teachers who set the expectations for our kids. You don't see it. At some point, my fear is that is going to continue to trickle down. So I am not saying people are definitely going to leave by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm saying body language, watching things and how it's going, it is extremely concerning, especially when you have teachers signing something saying, I really do hope they look. We want to make sure we get the best for our school who works well with all of us.
Doreen, I have to say to everyone that
Look at you.
I'm just
I have-
smiling, so I'm just.
I have 4 children that are in the district. One is out of district, one is at Sanborn, and 2 at Ellis School. I care just as much as everybody that's sitting in this room. I did not make my decision lightly. I did so much research. I observed, I asked questions, and then I did it all over again, constantly. But I don't want anyone to think that this is a decision that, this affects my kids too. I've done so much trying to make sure that she's the right fit because it's not just my kids, it's everyone's kid. I don't have the luxury right now, like I used to before I was on the board, to think about, okay, how's this gonna affect my kid? I have to now know how it's gonna affect every single kid. This person that we're hiring has to represent all the children from the district. And I honestly feel, after a lot of research and a lot of really tough questions that I've
Okay.
had.
And I get that, Tammy, but my concern as a parent in watching things, I watched Superintendent Langdon with the board, and I think we can all agree, you guys didn't mesh. It wasn't there. You didn't, I'm not gonna ask you to answer, but it was apparent. Now, my question is, that's someone looking out in at you guys. Now, you guys need to look out at this. Individually, she may have every qualification in the world, and she very well may be that person. But at the same time, you have to give people a chance to absorb that. You have to give, people like, say, the principal and these teachers, these people who signed the petition, you have to give them the opportunity to have that teamwork and collaboration with her to feel that. They haven't had that yet. Just because you guys stepped off on a great foot, that's wonderful, absolutely. But you didn't have that with Lenga, whereas other people on this side of the block did. So it's one of those things where, though she individually, research-wise, she's got it all, but does she have that collaboration? Does she have that teamwork with those people she's gonna be working with day in and day out? And I get our kids don't know her, and sometimes they don't need to. Growing up, I talked to my superintendent maybe once, because he came on our bus and yelled. But in all actuality, it's the teachers, it's the Mr. Safinas, the Mr. Bridles, the Mrs. Blades, it's them. It's great she works great with you guys, but it goes beyond you guys. And if that collaboration isn't happening, because visually, looking in, we saw it not happening with you guys in Langa, and I'm telling you, looking in again, I'm seeing you guys working great with her, but I'm not seeing that with the rest of the team. And to me, teamwork makes the dream work, and if you don't have it, you're at a loss. No matter what your resume says, no matter how great your credentials are, it doesn't matter.
I do say, we did offer Michelle, we did extend the contract for 2 years.
And that's another
We
thing.
did.
In addition to that, Andy, I agree with you.
Right.
But here's the thing, SAU83 is the only school in our area with a 5-year agreement, and that's after a 3-year renewal term. Sanborn, Derry, Hampton, they're all 2- and 3-year agreements. And those people, they've been with them. SAU16, they had them for a few years before they offered them 5. You're asking this side of the fence to absorb something that, quite honestly, again, just because it works for you, doesn't necessarily mean everyone's meshing. And I think it's quite an exorbitant contract. I get the point for longevity, for stability for the district, but at the same time too, it's one of those things where you're asking everybody to swallow a pill because it works for you guys. And that's hard.
It doesn't work for us, Doreen, it works for the district. None of us sit up here and make a decision that works for us individually.
And
And if we did, we wouldn't be sitting here.
I agree. And I wholeheartedly, as a person who voted for several of you,
Am I right, Deb?
wholeheartedly, you also have to feel, people who voted for all of you guys, we're here for a reason.
I understand, I'm hearing you, believe me.
And-
You're getting plenty of time to tell us.
Oh, and I appreciate that you are, but that's, everyone knows what
I
I
mean, I do want to say that one of the concerns that I've had is the fact, we have gone through a lot of superintendents. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the school. And every time you get a new superintendent, you have to sort of start all over again. Because everyone has different, everyone has their strengths and everyone has, everyone has a strength, everyone has their weaknesses. And you can hire different people and they play out the role a little bit differently. And I honestly believed that we just couldn't continue with the turnaround in superintendents. That if we wanted to have an excellent school, and we want to have a school that, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done with the curriculum mapping, and with a whole host of other issues there, that this building improvements, and things like that. In fact, just to let you know some of the things about the superintendent now that I like, is she was here for 2 weeks, and the first thing she noted was that there was a drop off in math, there's a problem in math between third and fourth grade. She picked up on that just like that.
Hence
And no one else, no other superintendent that we had since I've been here had ever thought about that. I've been after for 3 years, I've been after for a capital improvements plan for the school. So we're not going from emergency to emergency. And I've been asking for it for 3 years repeatedly. We got one this year. We got a capital improvement plan for the school, which is remarkable, because now we're not gonna be lurching every time something goes wrong and trying to find out the money to fix it. Other issues, she'd only been here for a couple weeks once the school started. She had already picked up on some of the issues within the school and was making plans to address them. All right,
I agree
which was
with you. I'm not saying
very
individually
remarkable.
she's not a wonderful
Yeah,
person.
and so that, and the issue was like, I was thinking, well, we can go to the search committee and lose her, and we don't know who we're gonna get. We don't know if we don't know who we're gonna get. I mean, there's certainly some people who we interviewed last time who we certainly like to bring back for another interview, but we had no idea whether they'd be available. So the thinking was, well, we've got someone who we think, fits the bill for what we need for the school. We can take a chance and hire her, or we can go through a search committee and maybe not find the person that we're looking for. We're not a big school district, we don't offer a lot of money, and there's, as far as, and there's a lot, and even though we're also the school district offers a lot of challenges. So that was one of the,
Somebody else has to have a turn.
that was one of the issues that was going through my mind when we decided to go through and hire her.
Jennifer first, and then Sue. Are you waiting to?
Elizabeth, yeah.
Okay, so Jennifer, Susan, Elizabeth, how's that? And then anybody else who might want to say.
Just taking a step back, I just want to remove Dr. Cox from the equation completely. I just want to take a step back and say, I think this that's happening now, this exchange, would have diffused a lot of this if this had happened sooner. Because a lot of people, especially those that don't follow day to day, heard in June, we're gonna do the search committee, this is a proposed plan, these are the reasons why. And then the next thing people heard was, Tuesday night, they drew up this plan for a 5-year contract, but the only thing going out in between was that assessment, which we've discussed was maybe a little vague to some people, maybe there wasn't a lot of involvement, maybe people didn't have the knowledge. Maybe you weren't aware that there was a community with this type of decision that would be so vested in it, because we're not talking about changing a policy if we should change the policy to say the janitor has to lock the door or a citizen can have a key to the building. It's not a minor tweak to a policy, it's not kind of day-to-day operational business that's bound by structure, you're just following and making sure it's overseen properly. It's a monumental decision. It's the pinnacle position in our town. So people are very involved in that. And I think there was not this understanding of what you were seeing. And I can say, again, not to direct it at Dr. Cox, but when there is kind of this opposition coming from some parents at some meetings, and I know she was sitting at some of them, my response to that would have been to send a note out to the parents saying, we know this is quick. We know there hasn't been a lot of information. We want to work with you. These are our objectives. We want to see these capital improvements in the school. We want to work on these, all of these things, so people were prepared for what this has now kind of become a bomb, because nobody saw it coming. We were expecting the posting to go up and people to start getting contacted to make a search committee. So had this conversation we're having now happened sooner, happened maybe before the evaluation came out. This is our thinking now, guys. In June, this is a plan we put together. We've got this new thinking. And these are the reasons why. We want your feedback. We're gonna put this assessment out if you wanna answer it to the best of your ability, or if you wanna send letters to us with your input for us to consider. But because that process didn't happen,
I think we thought it did, Jen,
We're here.
and it sounds like it didn't. But when I wrote the memo for the board about the eval, I thought that's what I was saying to all of you, what you're just saying there. And if I had not communicated it clearly enough, that's my fault. I mean, the board looks at every draft I do, but we're in the midst of
It's not your
it.
fault, it's our fault.
We're in the midst of it, and we think we're being clear. and I read this completely different than you read
We
it.
are
I
trying
read
to
it that,
be as transparent
that we
as
were
possible.
saying,
That's
that we
our
were saying, look, we wanna evaluate her
philosophy.
before we bother to appoint a search committee, which that, I feel like I'm saying to, the search committee might not happen if the evaluations are what they, you know, what we feel are good. But all I can do is apologize for that at this point. I can't do anything different because you can't turn back the clock. And I really felt that we had been clear with what we were trying to do by evaluating her up front and quickly. Because every day that goes by, our kids suffer when we don't have something in place that needs to be in place in our district. And when you have an interim, they don't have the same clout, if you will, power that a permanent superintendent has. So if we wait a year, you know, or 6 months or 9 months, when we know we have somebody solid in place, and we give them that opportunity to be long-term with us and start from right now, going forward, doing their job, we're on our way quicker to get student learning
Agreed.
in the forefront.
And a nice compromise might have been to put that search committee together, if you will, as an evaluation committee, so that you get that input from different people.
You're
And
right,
that
that's a
can still
great-
happen within 30 days, and a decision can be made in 30 days. And
It's
then
a great suggestion.
People don't feel like,
Unfortunately,
we have 5
it's-
people at on a board, 4 say one thing, 1 say another, so we have 5 people that have totally deferred from what a community of people thought, with no real explanation or preparation short of this assessment, which maybe wasn't effective. So we're here where we are now. I mean, we're here. This is what it is. What I would strongly encourage, whatever comes out of this, which ultimately is a decision of Greg and Tammy and Sharon and Andy and Ida, because we give you this trust to make these decisions for us, is you know you have this involved community, and as things, not policies about keys, but as decisions that really are going to impact all of us, I would hope that in the future, it's clearer, and that whether it's on an agenda, or it's an open discussion, or it's what we're doing here before it becomes the situation we're in, then we can work together, then we can be unified, then we can make confident decisions together as a community, because though you 5 get to vote on it, we all really have to make this decision and live with the results of your votes. So, Dr. Clock's removed, it's a board and a community issue.
Susan?
I just wanted to say that personally, I did interpret the letter and the memo and the meeting the way that you all intended. So to me, that was kind of besides the point. I did understand why I was filling out the evaluation and what the purpose was, and I did everything in my power to express my feelings, and I encouraged others to do so as well, that I supported a full search. And so to me, like, regardless of how transparent that was or wasn't, I did read it that way, but I still feel that, I guess my issue with it was that it almost felt like the evaluation was a moot point, because I can probably think of like 40 or 50 people that I, have a sense of what they contributed to that survey, and it was in support of, if not directly asking for a full search, not saying go ahead and make a hiring decision right now. So to me, it feels like that input was requested and then disregarded, and that is the piece that I have some concerns with, and perhaps if there had been more of what Jen was saying in some kind of committee and open discussion, then it wouldn't have felt that way. And it's also hard for us because we're hearing there are things that we can't know that the district needs that Dr. Cox would be very good at. And so we don't know what the reasons are that the decision is based on. I've definitely observed, the capital improvement plan. I've observed the budget going into more detail than it ever has before, and a lot of positive things that I think are great. However, I think what Doreen was touching on, and I agree with, is it's like a puzzle, and the superintendent is the centerpiece of the puzzle, and the board fits in, and the community fits in, and the school and the administration fit in. And right now, that puzzle's fitting really well with the board, and you're seeing all of the strengths that Dr. Cox is going to bring to that position, but maybe others in the community and in the school felt that there needed to be more time, more opportunity to ensure that there is a real interview process and that it's very open and collaborative, and that piece didn't necessarily happen because we didn't go ahead with the search. And in terms of the timing and the decisions already being made, when we had outlined the schedule was, I think, like February 14th was gonna be the deadline for applications, so.
That was a draft, because
No,
I really
know, but I'm
wasn't
just
sure.
saying, you know.
I wasn't sure the timeline to call.
Right, what I see as really unfortunate is the fact that, I understand, you know, because I asked the question why Dr. Cox wasn't gonna put her name in, and I understand she felt that we would not get the best candidates to have, a good pool of candidates, and that it wouldn't be the best thing for the town, but as it is right now, we have only one candidate that we've evaluated, so it is kind of a moot point versus, you know, we didn't get to see more candidates because she didn't put her name in, and I don't know if I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but I feel like it's unfortunate because it forced all of your hands to make a decision in a way that didn't allow the community and the school, and in terms of, you know, the school and the morale issue, you know, Andy, you said that she came in and saw the morale issue right off the bat. What was done about it though, because.
She's doing something about it now.
But, you know, and like making a plan and putting a plan in place versus talking to people and sitting down with people, and I, you know, I'm in the school pretty often volunteering for my kids, dropping things off, picking things up, and I didn't see that presence, and if she identified that as an issue, you know, that to me would be number one priority to work on.
Unfortunately, I think our number one priority was getting a business administrator in place, because right after she came, the business administrator gave her notice.
Right.
But, that being said, the morale issue's been an issue for many years. It's not a new issue, and it's not gonna be resolved overnight either.
I think
I
whether
don't
you-
think it's going to be, I agree, but, you know, steps can be made to address that and to, feel that that is a priority, you know? And I think juggling, building the budget, hiring a business administrator, and whatever unknown things that we don't know
Well,
are going on.
we're also
The
designating a focus
hands were
school.
definitely full,
Right.
but, you know, it doesn't take much time
Right.
to at least express that it's a priority, and that's a concern, so. anyway.
Just like one other issue that she did face is that we were designating a focus school, which meant a lot of extra work. And she's actually addressing that. She's actually addressed a number of issues in that area already. And we're already starting to see improvement in some of the areas that made us a focus school. So I think she's really hit the ground running in that area.
Okay, Elizabeth?
Okay, I'm gonna just make some quick statements, and you can respond to them or not, but I'd like you to just hold these in place. I am gonna say something directly about her, and that is that she's never held a permanent super position. So she's phenomenal on her resume to all of you, and she's great to her bosses who are sitting at this table, because ultimately that's what you are, okay? But she wasn't even considered for Masonic or Hollis, and she was not hired in Hudson. Were you aware of those things? Sure you were. So I'm hoping you researched, why would that be? Where she was a temporary and interim superintendent, did staff leave by the numbers? Is that something we need to be concerned about? Because I am. I can tell you right now, if our community lost Mr. Safina, for instance, just because we've talked about him, he's amazing to the children. If we lost him but gained her, you will lose the faith of everyone in this community that adores him and thinks he's a phenomenal principal. I can tell you that I would be concerned mostly with the term. It's clear to me, I don't know if it's clear to everybody in the room, you've made your decision. You're gonna keep her, and you're gonna stick with a contract that you're gonna decide on. And that you're not necessarily gonna go back to the table with her and say, hey, we met with the public. They're really concerned, not necessarily about you, but about how we went about this process. We need to have you finish the year as an intern. We want you to do really well. We want to show them that you're the best superintendent that this town could have. We want you to prove that to them, and we want to offer you a 2-year contract with 3 options or whatever it is you're going to do. But If she walks away from that, then I would question what her desires for our community truly are, and not just for self. You know, for me, I'm raised 24 years government, served before self. It's all about my job, and everything else comes secondary. If she's all about her career, I'd question these other things that I just said. What happened in these communities? Why wasn't she the one that she seems to be here? So I'll say that first. Secondly, I'd ask you to recognize that aside from myself, and I got a lot of my information from people in the room that I deal with on a daily basis, and I had to sit back, research, and read for myself to understand what I'd come here for this evening. But I would say, clearly they feel betrayed. You all do an amazing job. You all have your own careers and businesses and things you do on the side, in real life too, I'm sure, right?
On the side.
Seems that way, doesn't it? I know, it seems that way, right? Like I have a little on the side. But with that said, she's spending most of her time with the people at the school, not with you. So when she is with you, one, you're kind of her superior, so she's going to be on her very best behavior, proving herself and her worth to you, and not necessarily to the people under her. I only know of one instance, and I would be, like I said before, when you start in a new job, some people just come in there like, and we're going to change all of this, and all the cubes are going to change into a different direction, because it's feng shui, whatever. You know, but in reality, you're upkeeping people, you're moving people, you're all of a sudden getting this thing spread out that all of a sudden everybody has to pay for the gym use, and you're thinking, wait a minute, I'm part of the community, why do I have to pay for gym use? What's happening with this or that? Because that you're hearing that was a demand, do the policy, whatever the policy says, follow policy on this, maybe policy to the core doesn't always work. What works for your community? So I won't ask you any more questions, and I won't say anything else, and I will thank you again for your service. But I will ask you to just really consider that if you leave here tonight saying, thanks for all your input, all the hard work you did, having people, you know, listen to the cause and sign and petition for it. We know you all care, but don't want to leave us with the impression you don't care what we really truly feel about this particular instance, which is how you are going to make decisions on major events in the future.
Well, I think, as far as, yeah.
Let me just get to the other people, and then we can answer, keep it in your mind what you want to say. There was somebody, Sean? Okay.
I guess one of my concerns is when we went from a Sean Peralta, 92 BD Hill Road. When we went from a 2 principal school to a 1 principal school, I felt there was a lot more staff support for that. A lot of the staff could see the benefits of that, where as a parent I was, strictly dealing with an elementary, knew that, middle school, which was 4 years away, was very abstract to me, and everybody was like, it's so different. I just couldn't understand or see how that was going to work with 2 different schools. Totally happy that it has, and extremely proud of the way that it has come together. But with this move, I did not feel that staff confidence as it was when we went to our single principal. The other thing that concerns me is when you offered the 5-year program, I don't want to say slap in the face, but it was almost like you were not hearing what we were saying. You were almost saying, we've made up our decision, and not only did we make our decision, but instead of doing our normal 2 to 3 year contract, we're just going to right off the bat give her 5 years. And that's extremely scary, because if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if you can say this because it might be personnel, but when we went to the 1 principal school, it was my understanding that you then had to buy out the elementary principal's contract out. What happens? If is there a buyout that is going to occur if she decides all of a sudden that the 5-year doesn't look well?
No, our contract will not be an open-ended 5-year contract with us having to buy out 3 years if after 2 years she's not working out. There will be performance clauses like in any of our contracts.
As a community, are we allowed to know what the
term?
the elements of the contract are.
You're eligible to see the contract after we put it into
It's a
negotiations.
public document.
With some of the suggestions that have been made, I would certainly hope that the board would consider the options that Elizabeth had stated in that, you know, here's a year contract or whatever with our option, not, I guess it could be a dual option, but our option of saying, you've been doing a great job, community and staff, feedback has been wonderful, and we would love to give you the 2-year or 3-year option that is in your contract. It's just very, I don't get the same feeling as I did when we went from one school, from one principal to 2 with this new superintendent, and that's what scares me the most, is that the administration is going to fluctuate, people are going to leave. Again, nobody's specific, it's just the feeling kind of that I get, and I'm concerned as a parent because our teachers are extremely wonderful. I don't want to replace any of them. To me, they are all irreplaceable. We've had teachers like Dawn, who's been there for, 15 years at least, or more, 12, probably seems like more. And that alone, with the effort that she puts in, the way that her class runs, she's got everything behind her, she's got years of things that she's worked to, find out what works with students, what doesn't work with students. If you got somebody new, you'd have to go through all that again, and I feel like our kids would struggle extremely and suffer for that, because you don't have that nice, this is great for kids and this has worked for the last 12 years. And my kids come out knowing what I want them to come out. They're smart, they can do the grammar, which I can't. And that fear is there for this move.
I appreciate your input, and we will take it into consideration tonight as we work through the contract.
Sean,
And Elizabeth's as well, and her ideas as well. Sir?
Yeah, Jason Chapman, 180 Beatty Hill. It sounds like there's obviously, you guys have heard all the concerns, and I've learned a lot here today, so I appreciate everybody's feedback. From my perspective and what I've learned here today, I think there's 2 different things. There's the process that was followed, and then there's the questions of the individual. So, Andrew, it sounds like you've been on many boards for many years here in Fremont, and Sharon, you've been here for a long time. So, knowing that you guys have been through this process before, I'd be curious to know, what was the success criteria that you guys had to choose a new candidate, right? Let us feel comfortable with the process that you went through. What was the success criteria, and how does that measure? How is that going to be measured based on who she is and what she's going to bring to the table? And then 2 follow-on questions. Where do you think Ellis is going to be 5 years from now? How are we going to be better in 5 years with her being in this role? And what are the concerns you guys have? Through any assessment, when you go through a process, you're going to have pros and you're going to have cons, and you're hopefully going to identify those. And that's kind of a gap analysis. So what concerns did you guys come up with when you went through this process, and how are those going to be addressed?
We can't, it's hard to speak about a person's evaluation in a public meeting, and we can't.
Understood.
However, there are certain things that the district has to look towards in the next 10 years, for instance, in our long-term planning. We have a tuition contract with Sanborn that's in its second of 10 years. We're at 10 years now. That's a big, important contract, which you're probably going to hear more about as the days go on, because we did get a GMR from the Sanborn Regional High School's tuition, and it's exorbitant, and we have to address that because it's impacting how our budget comes out to the voters. But we can't let it cannibalize our budget at Ellis, and we need a superintendent in place to start dealing with that on a continual basis, instead of having a superintendent once every year.
You need consistency, right? Change brings fear, right? It brings, people get upset, and it raises a lot of
balls get dropped.
question.
Balls get dropped, and you don't have the continuity.
Yeah. And I think what I'm asking is, you guys go through a process. You have a job description, you have a resume.
That's right.
Right? But that doesn't mean that's the success criteria that you're going to measure somebody to. And I'm just more curious about, you guys are privy to information that we don't have. And you guys are challenged with a difficult decision that you guys have to make. And I think what I'm asking, and what I think I'm hearing others ask, is, let us feel comfortable with the process that you made. We don't know who this individual is, right? So why, you stated clearly a number of different examples on why you felt like she was good. I just want to know, what was the success criteria that you guys went into this, right? What are the top 2, 3, 4 things that you guys looked at outside of the resume, and what her qualifications were?
We kind of looked at them, we kind of look at her as an individual individually. And we talk just like we're talking now. This is how I feel, this is how I feel. you know, one of my concerns is this, one of my concerns might be something different. And then somebody makes a motion to offer a contract, and then we see what happens with it, and that's what happened and it passed. So we didn't sit around and list our top 5 things that we like about her, and we didn't sit around and list our top 5 concerns. We talked as a group and talked about things that we thought she was doing well, strengths that she has, her personality, how she handles herself amongst the community and amongst the board and amongst the staff, how she handles herself under pressure, all these things that impressed us, and then somebody made a motion to offer her a contract.
I think specifically though, the evaluation sheet we used as a board was her job description and her duties as a superintendent and what she's required to do by law.
Yeah, and I guess where I'm going with the success criteria is, somebody mentioned earlier, she hasn't had a lot of time in that role. She has a lot of characteristics that map up to that, but there's really no way to measure it, right? So maybe one outcome we take, what's done is done. So maybe what the outcome from this is, as we go through this process in 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, whatever that is, maybe we need to institute something that's a little bit more formal that we can all agree on as a community, right? That we can measure somebody against, because again, you guys have information that we're not privy to, right? She could map up really well against those things, and we don't know what that is. But I think the feedback from this group and from the individuals here in the community, we should be able to put something together that we can all have a framework together when we go into something like this to help you guys make a decision so that we're not in a situation like this.
Right, I mean, I like, you know, a lot of stuff that you brought up, and just, I mean, I'd like to kind of get away from Betsy in particular, just talk about the process. I mean, there's a couple things. We have discussed about redoing the evaluation process. We've had numerous discussions about that.
Our policy that we have on the
Yeah,
superintendent.
and so we've been talking about that, and we're talking about revising that, and then, you know, we most likely we will be getting community input when it comes to that, you know. The other thing, when it comes to the hiring superintendent, a couple, I mean, just in general, the couple of things I look for is their knowledge about educational law, about education, you know, educational law in New Hampshire, how schools ought to be run, statewide policies and that sort of thing. The other thing I'm looking for is knowledge. In other words, how much do they, you know, how much do they read? How much are they up on the latest materials? How aware are they on research? So that's another thing that I.
Is that something that you research yourself to know what to ask and know what to understand?
Yes, in part, yes, I do a lot of reading. The other thing that we look at is, it's sort of an intangible, and I think we looked at this, you know, with the 2 superintendents I've been involved in hiring. One thing we looked at is their expectations and how, and you know, do they have high expectations for the school and for the staff? And are they the kind of person that really demands and requires performance from people, that people work at their best to achieve the goals of the school board, the goals of the school? And the other thing I look at is what is their primary focus? Is their primary focus their career? Is it the schools? Is it the kids? Is it education? So what is their primary, I mean, for me, I like their primary focus to be on the kids, you know, and they're driving, and someone who's really driven to improve education at the school. So those are some of the things that I look at, you know, that I've looked at when I'm hiring a superintendent. Those are some of the things that are important to me. And so that's.
You know, no, I mean, that's great feedback, and thank you, and I think it's one of those things that there's a reason people have been leaving. I don't know what they are. We do a lot of superintendents, to people giving notices, so like anybody, when you're hiring, you want to hire the right people and make sure that they map up with a certain characteristics on what's going to be best for the community. So maybe an outcome from this is that we can regroup, whatever format that is, to come up with a list of success criteria for any of those roles, right? So again, so that we're not in a position like this again.
Right, you're right. I mean, there probably could have been a different way that we handled this.
But I would be curious to know. It sounds like you're really high on her, and that's great, and I'm excited, and there's 2 things, the outcome of this is for the kids. We're all vested in this, it's all for the kids, and we all know that, you know, communities with strong school districts, all the property values go up, and we all want that to happen at the same time, right? So you have a lot more visibility in her than we do. How are we going to make me feel comfortable? How are we going to be better off 5 years from now with her in here? That's That's what I would like to know, at a high level, right? Not.
Well, what I expect, I mean, you know, there's a couple of things that we're looking at in the school. One, we do have a lot of staff that have been there for a long time. And so I think within the next 5 years, you are gonna see a turnover in the staff. So what we're looking at is the kind of people that they hire, and are they the kind of people that are good for the school? So that's one thing we'll be looking at. The other thing we'll be looking at is, does the school continue to, and we don't do kneecaps anymore, unfortunately, but in the NEWA, and in fact, we did really good. And what was amazing, you know, about the latest testing, of course, she wasn't real involved with it, but the latest testing is that most schools, when they develop the Common Core, their test scores go down. That's been throughout the United States for people who started earlier. Ours went up, which is pretty remarkable. But that we see continued improvement in performance of the students.
It's an expectation the board has set.
Yeah.
For the superintendent, is that we want to see every student achieve higher.
Yeah, it's
And
a measure,
higher.
right? That's, yeah.
That's
yeah,
our measure,
yeah.
that's
Right.
one of our measures, and, you know, it's an expectation that the board has put on the superintendent.
And it's
And
a
it's-
specific district goal that we've
And
set
it's
this year, which we
individually.
do annually.
It's looking at the children individually to make sure everybody is growing in their education.
Dan?
Dan Kayaki at 51 Louise Lane. So, talk about the test scores going up. I would ask the board, who do you think is most responsible for that happening?
Everybody.
What body?
Everybody.
I don't think there is any one group that is totally responsible. I think the fact that the district itself has decided to focus since, 5 or 6 years ago on student achievement, above all else, really. And we did have Mr. Sabina come in about that time, and he was very willing to step up and approach student achievement as our #1 priority. And then the teachers, of course, have been doing a wonderful job with that as well. And the students are doing great, and the parents are doing great. I mean, I would say it's everybody, including the board, that's really tried to drive the fact that student achievement is why we're all here. And, you know, we still have a ways to go, but we're definitely going in the right direction.
I mean, I say teachers, I say paras, I say everybody.
Jen?
Just directly to that, because I think you just made the most perfect statement. It was a collaboration of everybody working together, of the superintendent, of the staff, of the parents, of the student, of the board. You just said it perfectly. That success is going to translate into every aspect of this school district, from choosing the right superintendent or being informed of the best candidate for superintendent, to having better test scores, to having a happier staff, to having more successful students. That was perfect. And that's what didn't happen here in this particular case. And that's what I think we really need to focus on having happen as we go forward, dealing with other issues that come up.
Angela?
Angela O'Connell, 63 Grissom Road. One thing that I do want to address that was stated tonight, and it's been stated a few other times, that there's a small group of organized individuals, and that's been stated, referring to the group of people who are here, also the group of people who were at the deliberative session. So with that said, I can personally say that I represent my household. So I represent my husband, who's home with my daughter, who goes to bed at 7 p.m. And I also represent 4 other families that I know who cannot come here. So when you see a small group of organized individuals, I think that we actually may represent a larger group of people, possibly 400 people that was referred to. So that was one thing I wanted to say.
And I would like to apologize if we've minimized the effort that is put out here, because it does matter, and I've been in your seat on other topics back in the day.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much.
I know what goes into it.
I appreciate that very much. The other thing is consistency and stability. Absolutely. I think even when I said I volunteered to help with the search committee, that's what I put in there, that we cannot continue with the turnover, so I understand that. I love the idea of an extended contract with some clauses in there, if you will, to make sure the performance is there. My other concern, quite honestly, is the cost of the position. We've said a few times it's the highest paid position in the town. When you look at the cost increases that's happened in that position in the last 4 years, it's gone up tremendously. So with that said, I think our expectations of that position also need to go up and we need to represent that. When you look at it, going from a part-time position to a full-time position, I hope that when you're drafting this contract, you also consider having them be responsible for other responsibilities, like curriculum mapping, grant writing, working the Sanborn contract, really put in there some details to make sure we're getting the best use of this cost. Because you're right, taxes are increasing. Nobody wants to see that. If we're going to continue to increase the expense of this administration, then we need to make sure that they're going to deliver more and that they're going to meet the expectations.
Angela, what numbers are you using? I'm just
When
curious.
are you using this one?
Yeah.
Do you want, if I can photocopy, I'll give it to you.
No, just speak to it, just.
I don't have it,
I mean, I
couldn't find my
have the
folder,
financials.
But yeah, but if you could, but basically, when you look at the cost of the office, when you went from a
So
part-time
you're
to a
looking at the
full-time.
superintendent's
You're looking at the
office,
whole
you're not
office.
looking at
Yes.
the salary,
No,
because
superintendent.
our part-time superintendent was at 85,000 and our full-time superintendent is at 90.
Right.
And is that the contract, because then you also have the benefits, you also have the retirement, there's other things that go in too when you make someone part-time to full-time.
No, there's no change in that regard as far as what we were offering the individual. Even a part-timer gets, because they were over 30 hours, they were getting health insurance.
It looks like, when you look at the office of the superintendent line, and maybe things, I know there was different reportings that we identified and so forth. It looks like in 2006, fiscal year ending 2006, the cost was $176,306.
2006?
Right.
Oh.
Going all the way up to, right now,
In
13-14.
2006.
No, I mean, I could look at it, I just didn't know you were going back 6 years.
In 2006, I don't think we were here. We were at the school.
So what was the first year that, I have other numbers.
2007.
2007?
Is when we became our own district.
Okay, so fiscal year ending June 30th, 2007, or ending 2008?
2000.
Yeah.
Deb?
I cannot.
Even if you wanted to, and I'll show you these numbers, is even if you wanted to look at 2008, it's 242,307, and this year adopted was 303,754. You're talking about a $60-some thousand increase. So that's where I'm saying, $60,000 when we're not getting increases to a lot of other areas and so forth.
You have to look at each line item, Angela, separately, because, and the reason I say that is, you're talking about, for instance, in 2006, I don't think we were our own district.
Okay.
In 2007, we became our own district and we had an office at the school. Then we moved the SAU over here, so that's gonna increase costs. Plus, we had part-time superintendents to start with, and as the years went up, we still had part-time, only we increased the salary. The only thing that changed with going full-time to part-time is the salary went up $5,000.
And I guess
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, and
So-
if you looked at it line by line, and that might explain some of this increases, absolutely. What I still challenge then is to say, if we're increasing this department by this amount, is there anything we can expect or request for them to do more?
We have increased expectations on the superintendent, which is why we need a full-time superintendent. Do you know what I'm saying?
But I think what Angela's point is include some criteria, and I think the contract does, and I think you all need to get a copy of the contract
Because
as
I
well.
was really concerned with the last meeting I attended, and I apologize, I missed last week, I was out of town, but the last meeting I attended, when the budget that was proposed to the school board was requesting a curriculum mapping position. To me, for an extra, and that was just the additional expense of that, when there's so many other things, I was very concerned about it. And that's my bottom line, is to look at the increases. If there's increases that can be used differently, if there's expectations we can set forward of this person, make sure it's also in the contract.
Does anybody else have anything?
So I have.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay. So I just wanted to talk about why I voted the way I did. Other people talk about the way they voted. So I believe. Wait, let me try. Yeah. There we go. All right. So I believe Betsy's gonna do a good job for the district. don't think we should run right to her. I was one that voted against offering the position. Back on June 18th, me and my wife sat and we watched the meeting. And, you know, what we led to believe was we were going to do the search. And to me, by not doing it, it was a matter of, you know, when Michelle left way back when, we lost a lot of credibility for different reasons. No one can know why, because different reasons, but we lost credibility in everyone's eyes. And we, you know, part of rebuilding that is following through what we said, and that's kind of what we said we were going to do, and it's not happening. So that was my reasoning. From sitting here, I even said to some people, Betsy seems to do a good job, but yes, I recognize, she's even said it, it's a boss-employee relationship. When I look from a parent's standpoint, I've had really no interaction from a parent's standpoint. The parents I have talked to haven't really seen her at all. Because again, it's only been a couple weeks and I got the same thing that you guys mentioned about the school, that there's just friction there. So I look at it from those two different standpoints, but I agree with what was been said in terms of, I think we should have done the search. I'll support what we did, because as a board, that's what we voted, but that's why I voted the way I did. It's just a matter of, you know, I think we're gonna lose, you know, part trust in the public, you know, things that were done with trust and faith, and, you know, we're gonna follow through what we said we're gonna do. So that's what I heard right now. Oh, and Red Ribbon Week, yes, it was the highest, but I challenge if it was Betsy that really provided that.
That was Kelly Ford and John
Yes.
Sabina and a few people
I
in
was
the
trying to
office
get a name,
that
yeah.
challenged us, and they lost.
So yeah.
That's what it was this year.
And even the scores, the MUA scores that we got, those were last year's scores, I think, right?
Yes.
So,
That's-
yes, we're doing good, but nothing against her, but, you know, other people.
I would say here with Red Ribbon Week too, the school office called the PTA and said, can you bring members of the PTA in to come run around and do the tallies for us instead of using staff or office people, so we can bring the community into the school to be part of this and see what's going on and to be integrated. And I feel like the school is doing an excellent job and the board could do a better job. So that's just a good example of how that happened.
I mean, I just like to say, I mean, I didn't need to apologize for my remarks, but the, you know, I've heard a lot.
Did I apologize
Yes,
for
you
your
did.
remarks? I'm sorry that I apologize for your remarks.
The,
There I did it again.
I mean, what I've heard, you know, what I've been hearing is like, well, the people decided at the deliberative session, people did this. Well, it was about 60 people out of 2,000 registered voters, so that is there was a group of people who did vote in the deliberative session, did vote to raise the budget. I certainly understand that, but it was, but when I see that, but I don't see it was, if more people, I think this next deliberative session is gonna be interesting.
So
And I doubt very much of the school budget is gonna pass as recommended. But my perspective is this, my perspective, I know, and I will support the budget, because I voted, well, I didn't vote for it, but I will support the budget because I'm in the school board. But my perspective, you know, is a town-wide perspective. And I see a lot of people in the town, you know, who aren't here, who aren't necessarily vocal, but they certainly, when I talk to them, are very vocal. And
We find the same thing too,
yes,
Andy.
yes,
On the school side of the community.
so I think of the town as a whole, and that there are different groups of people and various, you know, who do get organized, you know, for various reasons. So that's sort of the way I see it.
Jennifer.
I think we segued perfectly to what I'd like to say. Which I wasn't gonna say because it was off topic, so thank you. I think, yeah, I mean, it's not gonna come out the way I want, but let me just think this through. When Greg said that this was like your chance to kind of almost, you know, repair the friction that was once after Langa left, you know, I think that's true. I think there's a lot of friction that's unspoken. I think our town is sometimes, those school people just want more and those town people just want less. And I don't think that could change unless people on the board, and you especially, when you're talking to the people who are complaining about taxes, what do you say? what do you say to them? Do you say, I understand, taxes suck? Or do you say, you know, I know taxes went up 70 cents, our school's doing really great. Sometimes you donate to causes because you feel like out of the goodness of your heart that it's a good cause. Our school is a damn good cause. And 70 cents is not much. $1 isn't much. Now, I'm not saying that taxes didn't go up more than that, but that's not because of our school. That's because of federal mandates. That's because of all kinds of stuff going on federally. And it stinks because cost of living is not going up. But I'll tell you, if you don't bridge that gap between the town and the school, and you have that opportunity to do it, if you don't do it, that's why morale is bad. Because we sit here saying, this is our future. We could give a little extra and make it great, or we could take some and make it eh. My kids will go through their life, and it's because of what's going on right now. It's because this is gonna affect them the rest of their life. So their lives are in your hands, you know, and I think about this daily. I think about you guys and I put my trust in you, and you've done good for us, and that's why I do appreciate it. But you can bridge that gap in our community. You can help us help you bridge that gap. We don't want to sit here and blackball all your decisions. I don't even want to be here right now. I want to be putting my kids to bed, you know? But if we feel like we're being thrown through this process just because we want to save a couple bucks when the school's a good cause, I'm not saying let's throw tons of money at it because I don't want my taxes going up. I don't have the money for that. But let's educate our town. You guys have that. You have that. We have that. We all have that. Our curriculum committee could have done that and didn't. There's ways we can work together, and I think that's what I always try to say when I come to these meetings. I'm not looking for happy jolly land. I know reality is reality, okay? And I know that times are tough, but I've met people, my neighbors were in a bidding war over the house next door. I know a family that can't even find a house because every house they go to buy in Fremont gets snatched up. So I think there's two sides to every coin, and you can take the high road and the positive road, or you can take the negative, grumpy road. And I choose to take the high road, or at least the positive road, because I think our school could be great, and I think we have a great board, and I think we have great people here. We have great families, and I really hope everybody does the right thing because I'd like to see morale go up. I'd like to see our town do well. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I just had to say
You make great points, and it's a balancing act for the board, because we want, for instance, a teacher's contract to pass, so we know the operating budget's gonna affect that. We want the support staff contract to pass and the teacher contract to pass, and we try to stagger those so that we don't have them the same year, but every now and then, like this year, we're gonna have them both at the same time. So we do try to make all of those things happen, and also make the school has done so much better than it was doing, that it's an easier way to tell the community that things are looking up. You know, we're getting there, we're moving on, and we can only absorb so much of the contractual and governmental cuts that we're receiving, increases in contracts and cuts in government. We have to make up the difference through the taxes in our town when we have to support the school at a certain level.
I will say,
That's where we're at.
The school board does not rubber stamp superintendent. We're not that type of board. We you know, believe me, we hold all of our superintendents accountable, you know, and that's just the way we are.
Angela O'Connor, 63 Gristmill Road, hopefully my last statement tonight, I'll try my best, is the one thing that I'd like to request of the school board, if you agree, if you feel comfortable doing this, is when people talk about the deliberative session last year's deliberative session, and they talk about the group of individuals who had increased the budget, to also acknowledge that that increased budget allowed us to pay for the unexpected increase in the school buses, Sanborn, and a few other areas that if we did not have that increase, we would have been in a world of hurt trying to find those funds. So, the increases that we had requested, quite honestly, did not even go to what was requested for them to go to, because there were some basic needs that that money had to go to cover. So I would just like everyone to remember that. So when you talk about the deliberative session, think about the incredible cuts that would have had to be made if that increase was not made. Susan and Sean. Susan, I'll do Susan and then.
Okay, Sue Levine, 72 Road Drive, and this will also hopefully be my last statement. I just wanted to say, in terms of building that bridge in the community, I do think it's so important, and I feel like, I know that there was a newsletter that had gone out last year, and with the increases in the retirement costs, the healthcare costs, the Sanborn tuition, last year and this year, you know, when we brought forward what we brought forward to the deliberative session, our purpose was trying to not increase the budget really, but negate some of those cuts, because in real terms, money was getting taken away from our kids, from the education of our kids, to fund retirement funds, healthcare costs, and tuition to Sanborn. And so, you know, I think that's the spirit of what that was done in. And, you know, to Angela's point, there ended up being real needs that came up and had to be funded with that money. But when we look in real terms at the dollars that are going to student education, I think that the board and the administration has been very conservative and tried really hard to be accountable to the taxpayers. And hopefully we can educate the people who maybe are more focused on not getting taxed out of their home and counting every penny, and I know that that's out there. And I feel for that. But you know, if there can be some of that communication where it's not just, oh, that school budget keeps going up every year, they just want more and more, they're not spending their funds efficiently, and more education. And I think the newsletter is great, but talking to people and you know, people that have credibility with people who maybe are in that position, and I don't think that necessarily I do have that credibility, because I have 2 young kids in the school district, so I'm seen as a taker. And I think there was, in that orange newsletter that went out last year, it was, you know, funding, getting other people to pay for their kids' education, I mean, that kind of, so that's, I don't feel that I can necessarily build that bridge. That's not to say I won't try, but we need support from others to get that point across. So I know it was a little bit of a divergence, but so thank you.
Sean, did you have something?
I did. You brought up the contract, and so I thought I would address that too. Last year at the deliberative, I don't know if it was the deliberative session or if it was, it had to have been at the deliberative session. But I'm hoping that this year that the board will, as a unit, support both contracts. I felt last year that it wasn't a unified stand, so I felt that some of the community that doesn't want to see the taxes go up grabbed onto something and said, oh, they don't really need the contract. There isn't everybody standing behind them. I think it's really important that if you want to see the teacher's contract and the supportive staff contract go through, which we are all hoping will go through, and we'll do everything in our power to help you get them through. I think it's important for the outside to see everybody as a board standing behind both contracts. That at the deliberative session, of course, everybody's question will be answered, but hoping not in a negative way. I didn't agree, but I went with this, or we didn't all agree, but you know, 4-1 we did. I think that sends to the public a really bad response in that, you know, this isn't a good contract and we shouldn't support it. And so I'm concerned when that happens, and I would hope that the board as a whole, as 5-0, would say, you know, we've negotiated this contract, we've had our lawyers, the teacher union, the union has, you know, represented, and, you know, both sides have sat down, and this is a great agreement. We've both made concessions, we've both come up to this, and we really think that the town needs to support this. I think it's really important that it comes as a whole board and not as a part.
Right, we can't guarantee that everybody's gonna vote yes
I-
to something.
no, but I understand that.
And the basic rule of thumb is if the board does vote the majority vote in favor of something, but you don't, but you haven't,
Mhm.
then you just don't speak against it. You don't have to speak up for it though either.
Okay.
You're not, as an individual, so if a contract comes through that's, 3-2, two people might not like it, but they're gonna go with, the board approved it, they don't have to speak up and scream from the hilltops that they support it.
I understand, but, and Andy, forgive me, but I think it was, I don't know if you were unable to make a
I
deliberative
was
session.
unable to make it last year.
But I don't know if there's a reason that somebody can state or something, but I know that some of that was, I've heard in the community, just randomly, that it was perceived as you not supporting something. And I'm not saying that you said that, I'm just saying that that was the perception, that 4 out of the 5 board members were there and you weren't, so it wasn't really support, you know what I'm saying?
Oh.
There's that misconception of, well, I don't really support it, so I'm not gonna go, because I'm not gonna, that way I won't
That's not why I did
say
it.
anything. I know, and I'm not trying to put anything in, I'm just saying that might have been the perception that was out there, and I heard a little bit about that, like, well, one board member wasn't even there, so it couldn't have been, I don't know. It's hard. I mean, everybody can grab onto something, but I'm just, as a community member, I'm just hoping that, like, to make you aware of some of the things that.
Yeah, the deliberative session, is
It's
one
just
thing, and then we
crazy.
have the ballot voting, which is in the booth.
Right,
And
it's-
900 people show up for that, and 100
I
show
know.
up for the deliberative, so.
And it's crazy.
With one person missing from the deliberative,
I know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know, and I'm just saying,
Well, I'll be there this year.
I just want to say,
Don't
that
get
was,
sick, Andy.
that was a perception that,
If you're in a poll,
that
Even if
I've
I'm
kind
sick,
of
I'll be
heard,
there.
has 7/12 that
It is a
week,
perception that I've heard, so I wanted to make it
Right.
aware, bring it before everybody, just because I really want to see the contracts passed, and I really want people to, know that the school board is behind the negotiations that they've, obviously worked hard on. That's all I'm saying.
It's late. Sorry. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, we're gonna I need to have a motion to go into non-public.
So move, or for what?
No, you have
We have no issue for why.
Yep.
With the 1A, stuff like that.
Thank you.
to, 91 dash.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. 91
A,
I don't know what you're doing.
2A superintendent contract.
Shut that out.
We're just right on.
It's on, is that all right?
Public,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, okay.
We're back in public session, and I need a motion to seal the minutes for a year. I think that'll be plenty of time.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.